Today we're going to take a look at my brother's health. To do this, we're going to run some tests. The first test we're going to run is the temperature. Temperature can vary because of your gender, because of the activities you do, the food and fluid consumption, and also because of the time of the day. So to do this, we're going to use a thermometer and take it by his ear. This will measure the body's core temperature, the body's internal organs temperature. Okay, so 36.4. I'm gonna write that down. So the second test we're gonna run is his pulse rate. That's the number of times his heart beats per minute. This can vary because of your exercise, of an illness, if you have a heart condition, or even because of your emotions. To do this, I'm gonna measure it here in the wrist, the radial, in the arm, which is the brachial, or in the neck, which is the carotid. If that doesn't work, I'll be using the stethoscope. I can feel it a little bit here in the brachial, but it won't be accurate. No, I'll be using the stethoscope instead. Okay, got it. Okay, so he had 94 pulses per minute. So we're gonna move on to the next test. So the third test we'll be running is the respiration rate. For this, I'm gonna use the stethoscope. Breathe in. Thank you. So he breathed 21 times per minute. So we're gonna move on to the next test. So the fourth test we'll be running is the blood pressure. For the blood pressure, we're gonna use the brachial artery, which is this one. The first measurement we get is the systolic. That is when our heart contracts and pumps blood to all of our body. The second measurement we're going to get is the diastolic, when our heart expands and it's filling up with blood. So that's why one is high and the other one is low. So for this, we're going to use this. It's called a barometer. And we're going to try and look for a pulse in his brachial artery, and they're going to go position the barometer here in his arm. So we open it and we try to find the pulse. Okay. The barometer has a sign that says artery, so we're going to put that where the artery is. Have to be careful not to put it really tight, but also not to let it loose. Okay, so with the help of the stethoscope, we're gonna put it where the artery is. But for it to be a lot more easier and accurate, I'm gonna ask the patient also to mention when he feels the first pulse and the last one. Okay. Tú me dices cuando la sientas, ¿ok? Acuérdate que se siente acá, ¿ok? Ahí. Ahí. Okay. So he has a blood pressure of 104/80. And we'll be moving on to the next measurements. Now we're going to measure some of the parts of his body. The first one is the weight. It's important to mention that this can vary according to his age and his gender, but it can also fluctuate every month of every gender and of every age, and it can also fluctuate with a height increase. So for this, we're going to use a scale like this one, and you have to be without your shoes, so that way the electrons can work better. So his weight is 49 kilograms. Now we're gonna go on to the height. His height is 140 centimeters. Now we'll be moving to the measurement of his arms, waist, and hips. So I'll take the measuring tape and measure the circumference of his arm. It is 27. For his waist, it's 83. And last but not least, his hips are 89. Now we'll be moving on to the next part of the test. So now we'll be moving to our last part of the test, the hearing test and the sight test. For the sight test, we'll be using this model. It's called the Snellen. So we have to place the board 2.8 meters from the person. So let's start. I'm gonna ask my brother a couple of questions and he's gonna answer. First, you have to cover your right eye or your left eye without pressing. So we're gonna start. ¿Ves la línea 1?
Yes.
La 2, la 3, la 4, la 5, la 6, 7, 8, 9. ¿Qué letras está?
L.
Esta,
P.
esta,
Esa es la D.
esta.
Esa es una T.
Okay. Now cover your other eye. Fila 2, fila 3, fila 4, fila 5, fila 6, fila 7, fila 8, D, dime esta, esta,
D,
esta,
C,
¿ves la fila 9?
H,
E,
esa es una P, una C,
¿ves la fila 10?
L, C, O, ¿qué número de letra es?
La cuarta.
O, F.
Ok, muy bien. So now we'll be moving on to the hearing test. So now we'll be moving on to the last part of the test. The last test is the hearing test. So the first part is that we have to calibrate the sound level. He's going to hear a sound and try to imitate it without the headphones on. The second part is he'll listen to the individual test files. And for the last part, he'll get a personal audiogram that will let us know how his hearing is. So to start off, I'm going to play this. Now, y trata de imitar ese sonido. Lo escuches. Ok. Ponte otra vez los audífonos. Y me dices cuál es el que escuchas y cuál no. Ok. Final one. Okay, so then we're just gonna submit the test, and that'll be all. This was a test for both ears. So that will be all, and we're gonna analyze the answers in a minute. So now that I have all the data, I will be comparing my brother's data to the data that's considered to be normal. For this case, I use the eMedicine Health Pediatric Vital Signs chart. So for his temperature, the temperature he had was 36.4, and the normal is supposed to be 36.5 to 37.2. Even though this is a little bit below, it is still normal. Case of the pulse, his pulse was 94 pulses per minute, and the normal is considered to be 60 to 95 pulses per minute. For the respiration rate, he had a respiration of 21 respirations per minute, and the normal is from 14 to 22. It is important for me to mention that I saw that my brother was really nervous because he was going to be in the video. So as I mentioned before, the emotions can have a really great impact in the results. So they might not be as accurate because of the emotional state of my brother. It's also important to mention that during the pulse, I wasn't able to manually measure his pulse. So for the blood pressure, his blood pressure was 104/80, and the normal rates are 100 from 119 systolic and 65 to 76 diastolic. So his pressure is still normal, but it is a little bit high in the diastolic part. So moving on to measurements, his weight was 49 kilograms and his height was 140 centimeters. I used a body mass index calculator specially designed for children, took into account gender and age. So the result was a body mass index of 25, which located him in the 96th percentile, which deemed him with obesity for his age. So now for the waist, his waist was 83 centimeters and his hips were 89 centimeters. His hip-waist ratio was 0.93, which located him even higher than the 95th percentile. Then for the sight and hearing test, in the sight test he did pretty good. He was able to reach until the 10th and the 11th line. And for the sight test, he scored a normal hearing in the audiogram. So, taking into account all this, I wouldn't consider my brother to be healthy. I also have an advantage as I'm his sister, and I know the amount of exercise he does and the kind of food he eats. So, physically, I wouldn't consider him to be healthy, as his weight is really, really over the top. Consider its height and also his age. But I will mention, and I think it is important to mention, that he did pretty good on the hearing test and on the sight test. So that would be all. Thank you.